I appreciate and I'm glad to be here this evening with you. I'm thankful for the invitation.
Amen.
The church where I preach at is South Grand Prairie. Also sends their greetings to you. As my brother said, we have a custom where we send greetings to the churches where we preach. So receive the greetings that have been sent with the love that they have been sent with. My name is Abelardo Montañez. Abelardo or Abel, whatever is easier. It's Abelardo Montañez. I am literally, and I wasn't just being facetious, I am the first brother. I'm older than he is. He's just bigger. But he's still my brother. I was listening to him talk about how he's being told to calm down because he yells a lot. Well, I'm a little bit quieter than he is too. So don't expect me to be yelling and screaming. The thing that we do have in common though is faith, is conviction. We don't believe in playing church. We don't believe in playing church members. We don't believe in playing children of God. Either you are or you're not. You come to church because you're a member of the Lord's church and you do your job and you fulfill your responsibility and you do it voluntarily and because you want to, because God saved you and He purchased you, or just don't do it at all. Because what happens is, what he's talked about and what we're going to talk about in a few minutes is that we bring in to the church a lot of problems. We cause factions and divisions and we cause difficulties. And my lesson this evening is regarding Absolam and his father, David, the king. I've been trying to figure out how to present this as far as what the church can learn from the battle between David and Absolam. The very first thing that I want you to think about, though, is what his name means. Absalom's name, translated, means father of peace. Now, I want you to remember that because that was totally what he was not. Father of peace, that's his name. I want you to also know a little bit about Absalom because most of us already know something about David. We found out a little bit about David just a few minutes ago. The kind of man he was. He had committed sin, and part of the consequences of what he had done, we're beginning to see the results, the fruit of his conduct. And the way that he treated or dealt with his children are now going to be seen when their children or the children are grown up. Absalom is David's third son. His older son, who was Amnon, fell in love with Absalom's sister. Now, they're brothers and sisters, but they're half-brother and it's a half-sister. But he fell in love, Amnon did, with his half-sister, who was Absalom's full sister. And he loved his sister. Well, Amnon loved his sister too, and he loved her a lot. He was obsessed with Tamar, the sister. He was so obsessed that he one day took her by force. He violated her. He raped her. And when he raped her, he told her to leave. He was disgusted with her. He didn't love her anymore. And actually what happened, the Bible says that with the love that he had before, now he hated her with that much passion. So he hated his sister Tamar after he had his sister Tamar. Well, Absalom was angry. He was furious. And when the king, David, found out what had happened, he did nothing. He did nothing. That made Absalom angry. Well, I want you to know that he waited a good 2 years, Absalom did, before he did anything. He conspired against his brother Amnon, and one day he invited all the brothers to dinner, to a feast, and there he killed his brother Amnon. After Absalom killed his brother, he ran. He left, he went to the land of his grandfather, and he stayed there for a good 3 years. Now, when he's hiding or in exile in the land of his grandfather, King David doesn't care. He doesn't want to see his son. His general Joab decides to talk to David and get David to bring back his son. Well, David doesn't want to, and finally, after a lot of insisting and a lot of, not deceit, but a kind of a conspiracy of sorts, he convinces David to bring back his son Absalom. Well, Absalom comes back. When Absalom comes back to Jerusalem, King David refuses to see him for 2 years. So we've got a total of 5 years where the father David doesn't want to see his son Absalom. Now, see, when I'm reading all this and I'm thinking about all this, I'm trying to figure out how does this play, or how does this work with our lesson this evening? The lesson this evening has to do with what can the church learn from the battle between Absalom and his father, David. I want you to remember it's his father, because I think it has something to do with the lesson this evening. See, sometimes we don't see it coming. We're not open, our eyes aren't open, we don't see the problems that are being created by family. Because see, this is family. And Israel is going to be affected by the conduct of a father and a son. See, the father doesn't want to deal with the son's problems and their issues, and the son has a lot of issues. And this son, Absalom, what he does is that he gets so angry and he's resentful that in time he does something that is going to cause war between his father and himself. Before we get that far, I want you to read some verses with me. I want you to go to 2 Samuel chapter 14, verses 25 through verse 27. 2 Samuel 14, 25 through 27. Brother, this earlier was telling us that we got 30 minutes, and 30 minutes is not a lot of minutes. And like my brother, I don't know about a Mexican issue. I just think it's me and Tony. We just don't know when to stop. So I hope I just go to the 30 minutes. But I want you to think about what we're going to talk about, because it's important. I want you to read with me 2 Samuel 14, 25 to 27. Now all in Israel, there was none to be so much praised as Absalom for his beauty. From the sole of his foot even to the crown of his head, there was no blemish in him. And when he cut the hair of his head, now it was at every year's end that he cut it, because it was heavy on him. Therefore he cut it. He weighed the hair of his head at 200 shekels, after the king's weight. And unto Absalom there were born 3 sons and 1 daughter, whose name was Tamar. She was a woman of a fair countenance. I want you to know that Absalom is a handsome young man. He's good looking. Not only is he good looking, like I tell some of our young folk, he's that tall, dark, and long-haired guy that, gets on his horse and he rides in and he tries to get the young lady. He looks really, really good. He's got long, flowing hair. So much hair that every year they make it a point to cut his hair. And apparently everybody knows when he's going to cut his hair. He cuts his hair because it's heavy on him. When they cut his hair, I want you to know that they weigh his hair. And in this particular case, it weighed about 200 shekels. Now, for some of you that don't know my wife used to have her hair to about right here, more or less. She had long, long hair. And it weighed heavy on her. So during the summer months, it's really, really hot for her, because her hair is heavy and is long. Well, she cut her hair. And you can see it because she cut her hair. And I love my wife's hair. Well, I'm sure he loved his hair. It was a point of interest for everybody to see this man cut his hair. It weighed 6 pounds. When they cut his hair and they weighed it, 6 pounds. That's a lot of hair. Well, anyway, cut his hair, and we get an idea of what kind of a person he is. He's good looking. He knows it. Everybody knows it. And he's praised because he's good looking. And he has children. He has 3 sons and 1 daughter. Notice the touch here. He names his daughter after his sister, Tamar. Now, what does that have to do with our topic? Well, see, when he came back from being away for 3 years, and he sits around waiting for his father to talk to him, and his father doesn't want to for 2 years, he finally gets an audience with his dad. And when he gets the audience with his father, he goes up before his father, and his father kisses him. He finally recognizes his son and brings them back into the family, and it seems like everything is okay. But it really wasn't. I want you to read with me where we're going to base our lesson this evening. 2 Samuel chapter 15, 1 through 6. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about the things that led up to the war between David and his son. Because these things are what brings wars into the church. These are the things that happen in the congregation, what we're going to see Absalom doing with his father and with the children of Israel. It came to pass after this that Absalom prepared him a chariot and horses and 50 men to run before him. And Absalom rose up early and stood beside the way of the gate. And it was so that when any man had a suit which would come to the king for judgment, that Absalom called unto him, and he said, Of what city art thou? And he said, Thy servant is one of the tribes of Israel. And Absalom said unto him, See, thy matters are good and right, but there is no man deputed or chosen of the king to hear thee. Absalom said moreover, Oh that I were made judge in the land, that every man who had any suit or cause might come unto me, and I would do him justice. And it was so that when any man came near to do him obeisance or reverence or respect, he put forth his hand and took hold of him, or hugged him, and kissed him. And on this manner did Absalom to all Israel that came to the king for judgment. So Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel. We're going to talk about us. We're going to talk about preachers. We're going to talk about elders. We're going to talk about members. Because see, what he's doing is he's got a grudge against his father. He's angry. He not only is angry because his father took 5 years to look at his face. He is angry because of his sister Tamar. Because his father didn't do anything about what happened to his sister. He is angry, he's resentful, and he's got a grudge, and what he wants is his father's throne. He wants his father's place. It doesn't matter that he is one of thousands and thousands of Israelites. All he cares about is he and his father. He cares about justice. He cares about vindication, revenge, avenging. That's all he cares about. He doesn't care the effects. He doesn't care the results. All he wants is to hurt his father, to spite his father. So what does he do? Well, first thing he does, I want you to notice that it says in verse 1, It came to pass that Absalom prepared him a chariot and horses and 50 men to run before him. There's this good-looking young man with long flowing hair, and he's got himself a chariot, he's got himself horses, and he's got 50 guys in front of him running. They're not in horses, they're not on chariots, they're running in front of him. So here he is on his chariot with his long flowing hair, and he's riding around so everybody can see him, and he's got all these men running in front of him. Why? Why in the world does he have this going on? Well, it's exhibition. It's trying to make an impression. What he's trying to do is he's trying to show people that he's important. He's actually trying to build himself up. He's trying to make himself look important, authoritative. He wants himself to be seen as somebody that's more than he really is. And he's doing it by showing might. He's showing it by horses, and he's showing it by riding in front of all these folks. I want you to read in Matthew chapter 23, verses 5 through 7. Matthew 23, 5 through 7. But all their works they do to be seen of men, for they make broad their phylacteries and enlarge the borders of their garments, and love the chief place at feasts, and the chief seats in the synagogues, and the salutations in the marketplaces, and to be called of men Rabbi. What is he doing? Have you ever met people like that? What they're trying to do is they're trying to look good. You know, we have people that display themselves. They like to be seen. You know, I know a lot of folks that the minute they walk into the room, you know they're there because they're loud. They're loud, they're noisy, everybody knows they're in. And not only that, they dress in such a way, they like the titles, they like the Mr., the Sir, they like the Doctor, and they like to be known as somebody that maybe that they're not. But I want you to notice that here we're talking about religious folks. When in church we have individuals that are trying to make themselves more than who they are, there's always an agenda. There's always something that they're promoting, and it's not Christ. It's themselves. They're not promoting the truth. They're not promoting Jesus Christ. They're not preaching Jesus Christ. They're preaching themselves.